Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Told you this place was cool. Cool. That's why you all showed up, isn't it? Let's start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our God, we bless you and thank you, and we ask that you be with us in this next 45 minutes. That ask your blessings, Lord, that you may use my words, and that you may inspire all of us with a real love for the gift of life, and that you may inspire us all with a zeal and a passion to speak compassionately, but persistently about the value of life at all stages. For this we pray through Christ our Lord. Amen. Well, as you can see up there, the title of this talk is Choice and the Emperor's New Clothes. And I told you this afternoon that when I was a kid, I loved the story of the Emperor's new clothes. I remember I used to go over to my cousin's place, and his dad used to give us bedtime stories, and it was the first time I ever heard this story, and that I must have been about 6 years old or something, maybe 5. And the story we got that night was the story of the Emperor's new clothes. And I still remember the picture, because it was a picture book, and I still remember the picture of the Emperor marching down the street, and in the picture book you saw his butt, and as a 5-year-old kid, that was the funniest thing. That was just so funny to think about this adult guy walking down the street with no clothes on. It was very, 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 very funny. And I still find it quite funny. So funny, in fact, that I would like to take some time to not just read the story of the Emperor's new clothes to you, but I would like to see it demonstrated. And for that, I need 8 volunteers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Come on up. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, you guys stand right there. I'm going to assign characters, okay? Here are the, whoa, careful with those wires. Here are the, if you can maybe just, here are the cast. If you just please move out of the way of the screen, thank you. First of all, we have the Emperor. Who would like to be the Emperor? The vain Emperor, okay? Emperor, come over here, you're the Emperor. Next, we have 2 scoundrels. Okay, you guys, 2 scoundrels. Okay, you guys are over there. And then we have the Prime Minister. Okay, he's the Prime Minister. I'm just picking who's putting their hand up first here. And then there's the people and the child. You be the child? Okay, you be the child, and you're part of the people. Okay, all right. So here's how this... So go over there in the corner, and we're going to wing this. We're going to, move through it over there. And when... Have you ever watched that TV show where the guys get up and they start something and they have to act it out? Whose line is it? That's what we're going to do, okay? Okay, so when I say your name, when I start telling the story and it's your character, you're going to take center stage and act accordingly. Sound good? All right, here we go. Once upon a time, there lived a vain emperor. A vain emperor. Act like it. That means like a guy who's full of himself, thinks he's like hot stuff. Whose only worry in life was to dress in elegant clothes. He changed clothes almost every hour. Okay, don't actually change it. That's it. Very good, very good. And he loved to show them off to his people. We had sound effects. Okay. Word of the emperor's refined habits spread over his kingdom and beyond. 2 scoundrels, act like a scoundrel. Okay. 2 scoundrels who heard of the emperor's vanity decided to take advantage of it. They introduced themselves at the gates of the palace with a scheme in mind. We are 2 very good tailors, and after many years of research, we have invented an extraordinary method to weave a cloth so light and fine that it looks invisible. As a matter of fact, it is invisible to anyone who is too stupid and incompetent to appreciate its quality. The chief of the guards heard the scoundrel's strange story and sent for the court chamberlain. The chamberlain notified the Prime Minister, who ran to the emperor and disclosed the incredible news. The emperor's curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to see the two scoundrels. Now, one of the things you learn in theater schools, you never turn your back to the audience. There we go. All right. Even for a scoundrel, you can't do that. Okay. So, back to the story. Besides being invisible, Your Highness, this cloth will be woven in colors and patterns created especially for you. The emperor gave the two men a bag of gold coins in exchange for their promise to begin working on the fabric immediately. Hang on. Just tell us what you need to get started and we'll give it to you. The two scoundrels asked for a loom, silk, gold thread, and then pretended to begin working. The emperor thought he had spent his money quite well. In addition to getting a new extraordinary suit, he would discover which of his subjects were ignorant and incompetent. A few days later, he called the old and wise prime minister. He's good. Who was considered by everyone as a man with common sense. Go and see how the work is proceeding, the emperor told him, and come back and let me know. The prime minister was welcomed by the two scoundrels. We are almost finished, but we need a lot more gold thread. Here, Excellency, admire the colors. Feel the softness. The old man bent over the loom and tried to see the fabric that was not there. He felt a cold sweat on his forehead. I can't see anything, he thought. If I see nothing, that means I'm stupid. Or worse, incompetent. If the prime minister admitted that he didn't see anything, he would be discharged from his office. Oh, everyone act shocked. What a marvelous fabric, he said then. I'll certainly tell the emperor. The two scoundrels rubbed their hands gleefully. They had almost made it. More thread was requested to finish the work. Finally, the emperor received the announcement that the two tailors had come to take all the measurements needed to sew his new suit. Come in, the emperor ordered. Even as they bowed, the two scoundrels pretended to be holding a large roll of fabric. Here it is, Your Highness, the result of our labor, the scoundrel said. We have worked night and day, but at last the most beautiful fabric in the world is ready for you. Look at the colors and feel how fine it is. Of course, the emperor did not see any colors. I could not feel any cloth between his fingers. He panicked and felt like fainting. But luckily, the throne was right behind him and he sat down. But when he realized that no one could know that he did not see the fabric, he felt better. Nobody could find out he was stupid and incompetent. And the emperor didn't know that everyone else around him thought and did the very same thing. The farce continued as the two scoundrels had foreseen it. Once they had taken the measurements, the two began cutting the air with scissors while sewing with their needles an invisible cloth. Your Highness, you'll have to take off your clothes to try on your new ones. The two scoundrels draped the new clothes on him and then held up a mirror. The emperor was embarrassed, but since none of his bystanders were, he felt relieved. Yes, this is a beautiful suit and it looks very good on me, the emperor said. Trying to look comfortable. You've done a fine job. Your Majesty, the Prime Minister said, we have a request for you. The people have found out about this extraordinary fabric, and they are anxious to see your new suit. The emperor was doubtful, showing himself naked to the people, but then he abandoned his fears. After all, no one would know, except perhaps the ignorant and the incompetent. All right, he said, I will grant the people this privilege. He summoned his carriage, and the ceremonial parade was formed. A group of dignitaries walked at the very front of the procession and anxiously scrutinized the faces of the people in the street. All the people had gathered in the main square, pushing and shoving to get a better look. An applause welcomed the regal procession. Everyone wanted to know how stupid or incompetent his or her neighbor was. But as the emperor passed, a strange murmur rose from the crowd. Everyone said, loud enough for others to hear, "Look at the emperor's new clothes. They're beautiful. What a marvelous train. And the colors of that beautiful fabric. I've never seen anything like it in my life." They all tried to conceal their disappointment at not being able to see the clothes. And since nobody was willing to admit his own stupidity and incompetence, they all behaved as the two scoundrels had predicted. A child, however, went up to the carriage. "The emperor is naked," she said. You be the father. "Fool," the father said, reprimanding the child and running after her. "Don't talk nonsense." He grabbed his child and took her away with him. But the child's remark, which had been heard by the bystanders, was repeated over and over again until everyone cried, "The boy is right. The emperor is naked. It's true." The emperor realized the emperor realized that the people were right but could not admit to it. He thought it better to continue the procession under the illusion that anyone who couldn't see his clothes was either stupid or incompetent. And he stood stiffly on his carriage, while behind him a page held his imaginary mantle. End of the story. Let's give our actors a warm round of applause. Well done. Excellent. Thank you very much. Had you heard that story before? Yeah, Hans Christian Andersen is a great story, a great, great story. You're probably wondering why on earth I would be relating this story to the issue of life and the issue of abortion. And I think the reason is because sometimes in groups, in society, there can be a truth that deep down everyone knows is true. Everyone knows, it's instinctual. And it's often the little ones, it's often the children who are most able to express that simple truth, as it is in the story. And sometimes what prevents us from acknowledging the truth is this sense that if you're with the right crowd, if you're a part of the elite, a part of the establishment, then you'll see things this way. Remember, it was the fact that it was the stupid and the incompetent who couldn't see the clothes. And people didn't want to admit that. And I think in the issue of life issues, with the question of the unborn child, deep down everyone knows. But because it's impolitic, because it's unpopular sometimes to speak that truth, we keep silent. Any of you guys see the movie Juno? I got a clip from the movie Juno. Watch this.
There's your baby.
Oh my God.
There's a hand.
Oh.
And an arm. And there's the feet.
Oh, would you look at that?
Whoa, check out baby big head. Dude, that thing is freaky looking.
Excuse me, I am a sacred vessel, all right? All you've got in your stomach is Taco Bell. It's amazing that there's actually saps that cry at this.
What? I'm not made of stone.
Well, there you have it.
It's a great movie, wasn't it? Do you know, when I went to see that movie, I couldn't believe it. I was frankly kind of stunned that a movie like this would have been made, that was, in a sense, by simply showing the truth, a simple truth, in a way that people could understand it, it spoke a very, very powerful message. I remember the scene of the ultrasound in the cinema. The cinema was packed. you could have heard a pin drop as the image of the baby's head and the baby's arms and its feet were up on the screen. And the amazement of the people, of the actors in the scene was really communicated to the audience. It was great. It was very, very powerful. But what was interesting to me is that this whole movie presumes that no one is going to think it a strange thing that when seeing those images, people would go, oh, look at that, make all those cooing noises. Or even the fact that they call it a baby. No one said, coming out of that movie, that was a weird scene. Imagine calling that thing a baby. Because deep down, everyone knows that it is a baby. That's what it is. It didn't strike anyone as an unusual thing that took place. I love this image. I don't know if you can see it up close. There's a quote underneath it that says, there are two ways to live your life. One is if nothing is a miracle. The other as if everything is a miracle. It's a quote by Albert Einstein. And isn't that an incredible picture, that little, probably newborn baby, maybe a premature baby being held in the hands of someone? Powerful, huh? Beautiful. This incredible gift of life that is so tender and vulnerable. The issue of abortion, and perhaps when we're trying to navigate our way around these issues, when we're in conversation with people at school. I remember when I was in high school doing a biology presentation on fetal development, and I also brought in the abortion thing, and I remember getting up and talking to my class about it, and afterwards having about 4 or 5 guys in my class just rip right into me. And that was 20 years ago. And things have changed a lot since then. So I can't imagine what it must be like to even publicly take a stand in this, or even in a quiet way, the kind of questions that you might get from your friends. If you're looking for ways to, I think, point out the obvious, to point out what that truth is that deep down I think we all know, here's a couple of thoughts, okay? It essentially boils down to one question, because people often say, well, yeah, but what about this situation? What about that situation? What about if this happens, if that happens, if this happens, if that happens? Okay, in some ways, you can go at that all day. In the end, it boils down to one question. What is it? What is it? What is it that before the medical procedure had a beating heart and was living, it certainly is alive, and it's not a part of the mother, it's quite distinct, has a distinct genetic code, has its own heartbeat. What is it that was living before the procedure that will not be living after the procedure? I think that before we kill something, we should probably be able to answer that question. What is it? Fair enough? What is it? I mean, imagine your little 3-year-old daughter, you're standing doing the dishes or doing ironing or something, and your 3-year-old daughter comes up behind you and says, Mommy, can I kill this? And you say, yeah, whatever. Aren't you going to wonder what is it you're going to kill first before I tell you? Okay, if it's a cockroach, go ahead. Kill them all, If it's the neighbor's cats, well, maybe you might not want to do that. If it's your little brother, you might not want to do that either, okay? So you're probably going to want to find out, what is it? What is it? That usually determines our sense of whether or not we can kill something. Looking at the question of what is it? The question is this: is it a baby? Oops, jumped ahead there. Is it a baby or is it not? And it would be a lot easier if it was just a case of some people saying, yes, it is a baby, as the movie Juno said. I mean, quite clearly in the movie Juno, it was a baby. It would be much easier if the other people just said, no, it's not a baby. The point is that what happens is that we hear that sometimes it's a baby. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. Think of what you see in a doctor's office. If you've ever gone into a doctor's office and there's posters about prenatal care, encouraging mothers to take care of their unborn, what? Is that what it says? You should go and check it out. It's very interesting. You see, here's the thing. It's the same with cigarette packages. What does it say on cigarette packages? Warning, smoking can harm your unborn. child. It doesn't say fetus, which is very interesting. Fetus is as a term, it's fine. It's a good scientific term. And in the discussions around abortion, we often hear from people who are in favor of abortion, they use the word fetus all the time, don't they? They talk about a fetus. But in the cigarette packages, it doesn't use the word fetus. In the posters in the doctor's office that are trying to get you to take care of what's in your womb, they don't use the term fetus. They use the term baby. Here it is. Listen to this. Tobacco use during pregnancy, and I got this off of the Health Canada websites. This is an official Canadian government publication. Listen to what it says. Tobacco use during pregnancy reduces the growth of babies during pregnancy. Wait a minute. You're saying that the child in the womb is a baby, or the thing in the womb is actually a baby during pregnancy. These smaller babies may not catch up in growth after birth, and the risks of infant illness, disability, and death are increased. Our government quite clearly says that the unborn child is in fact a baby. The thing in the womb is a baby. That's very interesting for a government that has absolutely no abortion law. When the abortion law was struck down, since then, with no law, that basically, did you know that it's legal to have an abortion up until the day before the child is born? Did you know that? I mean, it's incredible. Do you know that you can actually kill the child in the process of the child being born? As long as one foot is still in the birth canal, it is legally not a person. It's a thing, according to Canadian law. Isn't that bizarre? That's why we have things like partial birth abortion. Do people know what that is? Do you know what partial birth abortion is? It is what it sounds like. When the baby's head comes out of the womb, they stick scissors in the nape of the neck and suck out the brains. That is legal. That is happening. Late-term abortions aren't as common as, they're not the most frequent type, but it does happen. That's an awful thing to think about, but it actually does happen to these babies. You see, often in the media, where the term fetus is thrown around a lot. Now, I want to ask you this question. Close your eyes. When I say baby, what comes to mind? Baby, 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 hey baby. What comes to mind? Anyone? Something calling your girl. Okay, fair enough. All right, I thought of that one too. Okay. What kind of feelings does it evoke? Little child. What kind of feelings? What kind of joy, warm fuzzies, right? Okay, close your eyes. Let's try this one. Fetus. Feet? Fetus, biology class. What? A germ. Anything else? What kind of emotional response do you have to the term fetus? Something that comes out, yeah, fair enough, yeah. A fetus is a thing. The word fetus is a thing, whereas a baby is a person, and so I think words are very, very important. And interestingly enough, the word fetus is a Latin word which literally means offspring or child. So it's a scientific term, but its actual origin means offspring or child. And if you use the term as an adjective, it can actually mean teeming with life. So as a term, it's fine. But we've got to be very aware of how these words are used. Words are used carefully to evoke emotions, to evoke an emotional response. That's why the cigarette packages don't say, if you smoke, it'll hurt your fetus, because people don't care about fetuses. It's like a germ, as someone said. It's just a thing, a lump of protoplasma. A friend of mine had a discussion with the organizer of a pro-choice rally a couple of months ago, and she's a reporter, and she really wants to know, I don't believe people who are for abortion are bad people. I just think they're wrong. But she was interviewing her, saying, help me to understand. And she said, well, it's a blob of protoplasm. That was her starting point. It's a blob of protoplasm. It's a thing. Fetus is a thing. You don't get an emotional response. And Health Canada knows that. That's why they put the word baby on cigarette packages. That's why the makers of Juno talked about a baby and showed it to be a baby. A baby is a person. A fetus is a thing. What makes the difference? Here's the scary thing. Seems to me that what ultimately determines whether one person unborn or another person unborn is a person or not is whether they are wanted or not. So if you want the thing in your womb, it's a baby. If you don't want it and you're free not to want it, then it's a thing that we can get rid of. At least that's how I read the situation. Because our government, our nation is ambiguous about this, isn't it? It says sometimes it's a baby, sometimes it's a person. If you want your child and the doctor kills your child in the process of giving birth, that doctor would be up for legal charges. He'd be sent to prison, probably for murder. Well, he might not be. But if you didn't want that child, then there's no charge. So the distinction is whether a person is wanted or not. That's what makes someone a person. Does that sound right to you? You know, we're hanging out together and I say, I don't want you to hang out with me anymore. You, therefore, cease to be a person. I'm going to take out a gun and shoot you. It doesn't work that way, right? Personhood is not defined in terms of whether we're not wanted or not. Think of a society that made decisions about what groups of people were wanted and what groups were not wanted. Hitler, that's right. If you're not wanted, then you're labeled as not being a person and we can get rid of you. I'm not saying that this necessarily leads to that kind of thing, but I'm saying that these ways of thinking are connected. And we've got to be very, very, very wary of these ways of thinking. All human life is sacred. As Christians, as human beings, as intelligent thinking human beings, you don't have to be a Christian or a believer to believe this, to think this, to know this. Because it's common sense. All human life is sacred. There's something about human life. It's inviolable. You can't take it away. And the church says that from the moment of conception, from the moment that burst of life comes forth, when you've got this unique genetic imprint, and now there's an explosion of life, of the rapid multiplication of cells, there is something there that was not there before, something that is more than just the sum of parts. And that something is sacred until natural death. That's what we believe as Christians, and that is the basic belief that is under assault today. That human life is sacred whether it's wanted or whether it's not wanted. It's still sacred. And we, my friends, have the duty to defend and nurture that life. The law of biogenesis. Anyone know what the law of biogenesis is? No, I'm not sure I forget what the next slide says, but let me peek. There we go. The law of biogenesis says like produces like. Dogs have puppies. Cats have. Cows have. Sheep have. Squirrels have. Horses have. Human beings have. Are you sure about that? Some people aren't sure about that. Isn't that weird? You see, this is it. And, what do you think's in there? A watermelon? An avocado? Like produces like. Here's the issue. If you're speaking about this issue with someone and someone says, well, prove it. Prove it. We don't have to prove it. We're not going to do anything with it. You're the one who wants to kill it. You prove it. Because the law of biogenesis says like produces like. The presumption is that it's human life. It's certainly human. It's human tissue in there. It's got a beating heart. It's alive. And to date, I've never met anything that's human and alive that's not also a person. Have you? No. So if you're saying that it's under some circumstances you can take that life, you've got to prove it. I want to use the hunting. And well, remember this picture? Do you guys ever see this picture? This was about 6 years ago. There was a surgeon doing surgery on an unborn child, and the child put his hand out and grabbed the surgeon's finger, and they got a picture of it. You see the little hand? Let me see if I can get my laser working. Got to charge it up. There we go. See the little hand there? That's the hand of the unborn child. Any House fans in here? They actually did a season of an episode of House on this issue, because House is like, it's just a lump of tissue and I'm going to get rid of it, and he's doing the surgery, and the little baby reaches out his hand and grabs his finger, and House like totally freezes, because House is like this total kind of arrogant / likable jerk. And although I haven't been watching much, season 3 it went downhill a little bit for me. Anyway, that's a whole aside. So yeah, the burden of proof is on those who say it's not life. I want to use the hunting analogy. Okay, imagine you go. Anyone here like to go hunting? Okay, imagine you go hunting with your friend, and you become separated. You get like a big high-powered hunting rifle. You haven't seen your friend in 10 minutes. You hear rustling in the leaves. Do you do that with a hunting rifle? I don't know. And you become aware that there's something walking through the leaves on the other side of this tree. Now, you can't see what it is. Now, you haven't seen your friend in 10 minutes, okay? But you're pretty sure it might be a deer. What do you do? Do you shoot, then look, or look, then shoot? What if you shot and then went to look? What would happen if you shot your friend? Well, you'd do more than feel awful. What else would happen? You could run, but eventually you'd be charged, and you'd be charged with manslaughter because you had a moral responsibility to find out before you shot, before you did something that could endanger the life. It goes back to the original question. What is it? What is it? It's not us that've got to prove anything. It's the people who are saying that we have a legal right, that in fact people are using that term, that this is a right to end this life. What's next? The key question, is this a potential person, or is it a person with potential? See, I believe it's a person with potential. Some people say, well, like these babies, they would die by themselves if no one cared for them. Same could be said for a newborn. Can't walk, can't talk, can't get a job, can't even wipe its own butt. I mean, come on. Dependency is not what determines personhood. Stage of development. When was the last time you looked at your baby picture? Did it look like you? Some baby pictures, I mean, the baby's pretty. I don't know why they take pictures like the baby's like born one day. It's like the head is like squished, like big cone head. And when I was born, my father told me a story. I was born 2.5 months premature. I almost died, and I was jaundiced, which means my skin was all yellow. My father tells me a story. He stood and he looked at the babies and he said, "That's not mine. That's not mine. That's not mine. Oh my God, I hope that's not mine." That was me. It's like, "Hey, Dad." So babies can be kind of ugly, they're all squished up, and then a month later they look really cute, and then a month later they're bigger, and then a year later they're running around, and then 10 years later they're trying to borrow the car, whatever, right? And the thing is that people will say, well, it doesn't look, well, that kind of looks like, I mean, here's the thing. You show that to a 6-year-old and say, what's that? What are they going to say? Maybe they might say it's an alien, but I think most people would know that it's a baby, right? And this is like at 12 weeks. 12 weeks, okay? But even before that, when it doesn't maybe look as much like a baby, well, we've got to challenge the premise that if you base on what someone looks like to determine whether they're a person or not, then that's not really solid grounds either. I want to finish I'm almost finished. How much time do I have left? Another 10 minutes or so? I'm going to show you a slideshow with music. Okay, and then we're going to wrap up with a few other thoughts and maybe have a couple of minutes for questions. I'm going to show you an assortment of images. Some are very happy images, some are not so happy. And I would like to warn you in advance that there is one image in here that is of a very horrible nature, that if you do not want to look at it, I'm going to tell you when it's going to be so you can not look at it if you want to, okay? I don't believe in shocking people without warning them. If there is one of the images is a cartoon of crosses on a landscape. It says something about Roe versus Wade being a landmark decision. Roe versus Wade was the legal case in the United States that made abortion legal. Okay, that's what it means. Right after that is the image that will probably be on the screen for 4 or 5 seconds. So if you want to avert your eyes, you can, okay? And invite you to just maybe watch this in kind of a prayerful way, okay? Before we did the skit this afternoon, I asked the people who was going to be the child. Who was the child again? Remember what you said as the child? The emperor is naked. Everyone in the crowds already knew it, but people didn't want to acknowledge it. They were afraid. They were afraid of what people might think of them. They might not be considered to be smart or elite, part of the establishment if they spoke that truth. Perhaps they were afraid that people around them would laugh at them or tell them to be quiet. That's what happened to the child. Remember, the child's father came and took her away. But if the child had not spoken, the parade would have continued. And I think that a wound would have been created in the heart of that little imaginary community or society. Because deep down they knew they were basing their relationships on something that wasn't true. The emperor was buck naked. He had no clothes on. It was a load of rubbish. And everyone knew it. No one wanted to speak it. Who will be the child? Who will be the child in our culture who's willing to say, but it's a baby? Simple as that. That's the truth. Everything else is secondary. All of these complicated situations, because I say it's secondary because it's ultimately easy, because whenever we deal with this issue, we have to speak that truth, but it's a baby, and handle everything else with compassion and love. Maybe you know someone who's had an abortion. I do. I've ministered to a lot of people who have gone through that. I can think of several women in my parish who have gone through this, and I work with them to experience forgiveness and healing and reconciliation. So often, many of the young women who are brought in to undergo this procedure are confused and frightened and have been given bad information. They've been vulnerable. They haven't been supported. It is not our place ever to judge anyone else. Ever, 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 ever. We can evaluate what people do. We can evaluate actions, but not to judge and condemn. If we're going to be like Christ, it means that we are to be loving, we are to be forgiving, we are to be compassionate. At the same time as taking that delicate balance of never accepting or never acknowledging that this is not a bad thing. Did anyone see the movie Bella when it was out? Great movie. If you get a chance to see it, see it. The character in the movie does this perfectly with a co-worker who finds herself pregnant and decides she wants to end the, as they say, terminate the pregnancy. I mean, there's all these euphemisms, right? Terminate the pregnancy. You're not, pregnancy. It's almost like it's terminate the pregnancy. You terminate appointments. I don't know. You terminate business agreements. But anyway, they use these words, and he spends the afternoon with this co-worker and wins her trust, it begins to slowly help her to see that there are other options. But in the middle of that, he also lets her know that whatever she decides, even though he doesn't agree with certain decisions, he will love her and accept her and not abandon her. That's a profound thing. So who will be the child? It's not going to be easy, especially after the events of 2 weeks ago when Morgentaler was awarded the Order of Canada, because now this group of people have declared that this is now a virtuous thing. It's a heroic thing to be in favor of abortion. Heroic. And the problem when evil becomes good is that those who oppose that evil themselves are labeled as evil. Evil is good, but good then becomes evil. So the chance for rejection, for persecution, for misunderstanding is increased. My friends, you were born after the abortion law was struck down, I believe. Many of you were. Many of the older Catholics and Christians are kind of tired. Many of them feel like they fought the battle and kind of lost. And it seems that every year there's a silencing. There are less children in the crowd to cry out and speak out the truth. And I think the fact that Morgentaler got this award, they've been trying to give, certain people have been trying to give him this award for 10, 15 years, but they could never get away with it. They got away with it this year because I think there's been a dulling down. And I really believe the Lord put on my heart to do this workshop to help to call a new generation to be that voice, to speak out for the sake of life, for a future generation. Because when you look at the statistics, they're absolutely terrifying. In Quebec, the province of Quebec, for every 100 live births, 48 abortions take place. Can you believe it? 1 in 3 pregnancies ends in abortion. And when they brought in these laws, it was all about, to save the life of the mother and this and that. 1 in 3 are aborted. That's incredible. In meantime, we're closing schools because there's no children. British Columbia was 38 or 35 for every 100 live births. Nova Scotia was 24, so 1 in 5. I couldn't believe those numbers either. So there's a truth that needs to be heard, and there's a truth that needs to be spoken. And I hope and pray that you will be like that child in the story of the Emperor's New Clothes. Thank you. I think we're out of, my time was 45 minutes, wasn't it? Yes. Yeah, I think we're out of time, yep. If anyone wants to ask me questions, you can come up and ask me questions up here. Thanks. You've been a great audience. Thanks very much.